Alright everyone, this is me participating in James Hoffmann's Great American Coffee Taste Test. If you haven't heard of James Hoffmann, he's a really awesome coffee YouTuber, and coffee's my hobby, so I really enjoy his videos. He did a thing where he partnered with Cometeer Coffee to ship out kits of 4 different coffees to anyone who wanted to purchase them, so I nabbed one as soon as I could. And you don't know anything about these coffees, how darkly they're roasted, where they're from, how they were processed, anything like that. Once everyone has their kits, he does a live stream where everyone else can follow along and taste all the coffees together. It was really cool. Cometeer Coffee does a thing where they brew highly concentrated, specialty, nice coffee. They freeze it into little pods and then ship it to you. You add boiling water to those pods, and then you instantly have just a nice cup of coffee. And honestly, I still enjoy the ritual of brewing my own coffee, but it was interesting to try out Cometeer's coffee and see what it's all about. Thanks very much to James for giving me permission to use his stream in my own stream. And of course, today's video has nothing to do with math, but it was really fun, so I hope you enjoy it anyway. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoy. Or dip different copies, and then on a live stream, you try them all at once.
Oh, to the Great American Taste Test live,
good, though. Thank you.
Live with all of you and me. There's a few of us here now. There's about 3,500 of us here, which is already a number I can't comprehend, but that's very exciting. What we're going to do today
my headphones are in balance.
Pieces before we do the tasting. First things first, if you don't have your pods, go and get them out of the freezer. It's okay if they're still frozen. We've got a little time. There's some stuff to talk about, but you need
always
pods.
Remember.
Hard luck.
So grab them if you have not got them yet. If they've been out for a while, that's totally fine. Don't stress about it.
You got it.
Get those pods. Now, go. I'll be honest with you today.
Essentially, you dropped the ball.
I do not stand a chance of keeping up with the live chat. And so there are some people monitoring the live chat. They're going to grab questions that when there's a Q&A section or there's a moment.
I need to adjust my volume too now.
Questions that I can answer.
This is such a janky
but hello to all of
thing
you.
I have
wish I could
going.
respond to everyone, but I can't. So
he's a little quiet for me.
Through kind of how today is going to go, a little bit of housekeeping at the start. Make sure you've got everything that you need, and then we can get on and do some tasting. So yeah, I'll talk about this for a little bit. I would say maybe 10 minutes before we start to boil a kettle. Probably not even that, actually.
Wait,
then we'll do a
my
tasting,
kettle's already
that'll
boiled.
last a little while, and then after that, there'll be some time for some Q&A, and then we'll wrap things up. So I would say we'll be done in not more than an hour. Depends how long Q&A goes on for. Depends how much energy I have for lots and lots of questions.
I may not stick around for the Q&A part.
So
I can
important stuff for today.
Daisy, but
the primary goal for today is for all
French press. I haven't actually had a French press. This is like a very weird way that.
But at the same time, the second goal is to do some every day and to do a taste test that we hope will yield some really interesting.
These are like
results.
frozen pods of already brewed coffee that you just add boiling water to.
And then, of course, I hope it's a learning experience.
It's pretty cool.
Anytime you do a comparative tasting, I think it's a great
just like
chance
brewing
to learn,
coffee too much, so.
And I hope you'll have fun doing a comparative tasting here with me. So
I'm not reboiling. My kettle has
let's just
a
run through the
hold
things you're going to need for
function.
today. Things nice and simple.
So it's just holding it at boiling, which is pretty wasteful. But you know,
at least one of each. If you're sharing your tasting, you're a very good person, and you might use both of them. You're going to need some water. Now, quick note on water. I'm using pretty much distilled water. If you're using distilled water too, that's amazing.
Stream is kind of
laggy. You
laggy.
can have a pretty much identical experience, and that's very exciting. Soft filtered water is
no
okay.
worries, hard luck.
If you only
Thanks for hanging out.
Really hard water or water that has quite a lot of bicarbonates in it.
Yes, you should use boiling water for coffee. So that's a myth.
It's up to you. You can always watch this later.
For light roast, you should.
And kind of watch this again tomorrow or another time if you really want the sort of most accurate experience. But soft water, low in bicarbonates, distilled is fine. I wouldn't regularly recommend.
Are people complaining about the stream being frozen?
But in this one instance, I think it's okay. Kind of useful. We're going to need something to melt into. Now, I'm going to use carafes today, mostly because I'm sharing my taste.
Refresh the thing.
So I'm going to melt into each of these carafes. I'm going to pour then into a cup for me.
Yeah, it's frozen for me too.
To an 8-ounce sort of sized mug.
I was also quiet because of that.
Into there and taste.
I think on stream that it's okay though.
Okay. I would say you're going to need ideally some sort of spoon. It doesn't have to be fancy and purple. Mine are fancy and purple because I'm a fancy man. And I like a fancy purple spoon. But you don't need a good day, though. It could be a soup spoon, dessert spoon, it could be a coffee cupping spoon. If you have one, that would be great. In some situations, you might want 2 per person. We'll cover those, don't worry. Or you might want just like a little tasting cup. Again, if it's you're sharing a kind of tasting and you want to make it as sanitary as possible. I'll also be using a set of scales today. I am going to do my best to talk in both American and metric. So we're going to be working with
I do have a scale. I guess I
sort of
should break
8
it out.
ounces of water when we melt, or about 230 grams. But you could use a measuring cup in theory if you really needed to. But scales are good for not making mistakes. That's why I like them in the morning before I've had coffee. It helps me not make mistakes when I make coffee. And then lastly, you should have, if you got the kit, your little tasting card that I will also walk you through.
I guess I don't need the outside
nice.
one.
If you don't have this, there is a link in the description.
It's a card where you
to the website,
rate like the bitterness, acidity.
There should still be time to print 1 or 2 extra if you
all
want.
that stuff of each coffee.
You want to take notes on one, or if you mess it up.
Pretty cool. I'm kind of excited about that.
So these useful. You will need one of these for later.
It's use scales.
I think covers the things you're going to need for today, pretty much. Let me double check. I've got everything I need here. Now, just check. Yeah, I see comments on the metric thing. I'll do both. I'll try and do both. I promise. I'll do temperatures. There's only one temperature. We're going to boil the water to 100 degrees Celsius or 212 Fahrenheit in a little bit. But there's just more stuff to talk about first.
Wait, you said 200 Fahrenheit?
Right. So
I didn't catch that. Oh well, it's not my problem.
We'll kind of cover sharing a tasting once we get to the sort of hot liquids bit, and it'll make a bit more sense. The one other thing that I really did want to talk about now is
it's already brewed.
I'll also that you'll submit. So once you fill this in, we'd like you to submit it through a link in the website that is again.
I have to use my kettle in Celsius. I didn't hear what he said in Celsius.
We're not trying to collect proprietary information here. What we do want to do is share the information that we collect. So just know that your information will be anonymized. There'll be no personally identifying information attached to
this little
data.
final preferences thing
for
between
questions that would make this
choosing like your favorite one between A, B, and C,
honest answers to them as
and
well.
then A and D. I guess
not everything's mandatory. You don't have to fill in the extra data.
No, boiling is 212 Fahrenheit. I think
to share it to improve the quality of research. And just to understand what people like better, where people are in their coffee journey, what they're into, what they're not into as well. Seems fair? I hope so. So I hope you'll take the time to submit.
Well, it's on 100C.
Each person that took part, it'll be so cool, and we will, as I said, anonymize.
That's not going to make
a
difference
at the end of it, and share the interesting things that we learned.
We'll teach him math.
One last thing before we get to melting. If your pods
I've lost all confidence.
Not yet sort of defrosted, you can sort of tell if a pod's ready when you shake it, and if it's still stuck to the inside, then what you can do, just run it very quickly under a tap, and it will just loosen off. And if you shake it, you can hear the sort of puck.
Dude, I was in our Ariana chat yesterday for the team drawing, and she asked what 6 times 8 is, and I said 40 in chat. I was like, oh god, I have to change my name.
I'm going to start my kettle going.
Should be 448.
Heating up some water. I'm going to decant one of each of these into each of my carafes. Now, if you're familiar with some of these roasters, don't let any preconceptions sneak in.
It is.
You might have had coffee from these roasters. You might have had capsules from these roasters before, and you might have an expectation of how they're going to taste. I would say, let go of those expectations. It'll catch you out if you carry them. So just go into this.
You're cute. Thank you.
I will remind you of the order as we go. They are sort of everywhere, so I don't think it'd be too tricky. They're on the scoring thing here.
Oh.
They're going to be in the kind of order here. I'll line
First
them
one
up
is Clatch. Oh, well, I should reverse it.
Be in the order. Be nice and be organized.
Wait.
Right.
Clatch, George Howell.
It's weird being in a room with my own.
Waiter, and then black and white.
For someone to be like, okay, let's go. So I'm going to boil.
So these are the roasters. They don't tell you what the actual coffee is, though. Let's make it blind.
And quickly run mine under a tap, just so that they're nice and loose. I'll show you what it sounds like when they are.
Someone in the YouTube live stream chat said, hello, the hell is going on? Wait, mine doesn't make that noise.
Is the sound.
Oh, it does.
Of a loose puck. So let me just.
Kind of wet though. I don't want to do that too much. The water ASMR, I'm into it. Oh, it's lagging again.
Hopefully, if there's some sound issues, they've gone away now. Apologies for those. You are going to listen to a kettle boil, though. In that time, I'm just going to have a little jump into the chat, see what's going on, check in for any questions that I might have missed at this stage.
Oh, he's missed a lot of things. That chat's been popping off.
So I'm seeing questions. Boiling 212. Did I say 200? I meant to 212, 100 degrees Celsius.
Didn't mean a full boil.
Boil it. Just boil it. It's fine. I wouldn't stress too much about it. It can be just under if you need it to be. Because the coffee's brewed, it's just less of a concern when it comes to the impact on taste. So
There's morning coffee. Exactly, yeah.
It's kind of okay.
The book says 200? It does? Oh, it does say 200. That doesn't matter. It's already brewed. Like, you're just defrosting ice. That's all you're doing. Oh, wait. Should I be doing this too?
Try and keep my my lids nice and neat for you. Just pop you in here.
Mine's very liquidy. Because I've had them sitting out as instructed. Ooh, the smell is great. And smell that coffee. I need to get my scale.
Lovely.
I didn't even use see-through glass. Yeah. I made you crave coffee here, Ben.
It's me again.
Coffee's great. You should drink some. Hey, Turbulent Welder, how's it going?
So
Thanks for following the other day.
230 grams of water to the bowl when it's time to brew. I'll say that again as I pour it and the kettle's not going. But 8 ounces or 230 grams of water fresh off the boil.
Okay, my fingers are really wet now. Let me go grab a paper towel and my scale. You guys can still hear me. Are we pouring yet? No? Okay. Oh my god, all these coffees smell so good. It's just the frozen ones too right now. It froze again? No, it's still going. This made your first cup of coffee? Nice. It froze for a second? Okay.
Okay. Are we still getting clipping on here now, or just those of you having audio issues? Can you tell me, has that fixed it?
Oh, you just got quieter.
A little cleaner.
Let me turn them up. I think it's quieter on the stream too. Maybe that much? Oh, you have mentioned IBS. Oh, geez, here. Okay, maybe don't drink coffee or drink decaf or something. I forgot about that. I'm sorry. The coffee just came in. Good news, everyone. It's a suppository. Futurama. I know a Futurama quote when I hear one. Go to restroom as quick as possible. Gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Taking responsibility for any urine-based accidents that may occur. Someone said in the YouTube chat, audio's ground fine enough.
Sound. Very stressful for me, I have to tell you. I'm not sure what's causing it. If there's some sort of interruptions on the stream, we're on a pretty good network here. Okay.
So you should be able to
I'm going to get on with this. Hush now. And just add some water.
Oh, I'm pouring? Shoot. 1 second. Go, go, go.
Lovely.
Shoot. I need 225 in each for the amount of water that I've boiled. Grams. because I actually do like metric more than American.
What I will say is I will slurp very gently.
225
today,
times
because
4
that
is
will
900, I
definitely
hope.
clip the audio if I do
That's
that
what I'm
wrong.
banking on.
So a day of gentle slurping, for me anyway.
A day of gentle slurping. Trader. Oh, thank you, Turbulent.
Last one.
Yeah, no, this is like the kettle I use for pour overs. So like it's really slow, but it's slow for a reason. So it's kind of annoying for stuff like this where you have to just dump water in and you don't need to care about technique. Yeah,
Lovely.
I am a trader, hard lucked.
Get you out of the way, a bit more space. And I'll just give these a little stir.
But I have to stir too.
Now, if you're way behind
slow.
or you're way ahead in this
Oh, hey,
process,
he's comforting me.
no stress. We've got lots of time. Nothing's going to happen that's super important yet.
Yeah, I have Irish, German, and Russian ancestry as far as I know. So
I'm not really worried about one drop of cross-contamination between the coffees here.
well, I guess, I mean, unless you're Native American, I guess. Even then, I don't know what units of measurement the Native Americans even used. I shouldn't have poured exactly 225 in each because I might not get the full 225 into this glass. I guess I'll find
So
out.
there's quite a lot to talk about when it comes to kind of a guided tasting.
My mom is full
really
Irish,
important things today
so I guess I'm half Irish.
Is that
oh no, this isn't nearly enough in this
one. I guide you,
one.
but I don't necessarily
Oh.
lead you from a tasting perspective. What I want to do is kind of help you
Oh,
break apart.
I need to
what you're
reboil some, I
tasting.
guess.
But what's really important to me, and actually really important for this
100
whole
grains short.
experiment,
Okay, bye,
is that
James.
I don't try and
One second.
convince you that what I like is right and what you like should be what I like. You know what I mean? Like,
How
this
does
is about your preference and understanding your preference, and not about trying to get it to align
I don't know how
with my preference. So I'm not really going to talk about any
messed
of
that
my own
up.
preferences till right at the end, maybe. But
I did my
that's
math
kind of
wrong.
something I'm going to be kind of conscious of. And if you ever feel like I'm trying to get you to think something,
boil
or
some more
prefer
water.
something, then I'm not, and you should ignore me. I'm doing it wrong. But that's a kind of key part of this. What we are going to do, though, is try to break apart the
Ruin your whole
tasting
experience,
experience
exactly.
into kind of component pieces. Because when you do that, when you break it down into simpler pieces, this complex thing becomes much less frustrating. Because comparative tastings are great, but if you taste a bunch of stuff, you'll often have the experience of,
maybe
well,
215
yeah,
or something.
this is different to that, and this is really different to that, and I might like this more than that, but I couldn't, easily communicate to you why it is the case. And understanding the kind of why, I think, is the really exciting and interesting bit of doing these kind of tastings. So what I'm going to do, just for me, is decant out a little bit of coffee for each one. I'll try and leave these in order.
We're going. I can
I'm
hear
going to
it.
share my tasting here, so I'm not going to have all the coffee. It's also 6 p.m. here in the UK, and so as I get older, I just have to be a little bit more careful about that sort of a thing. Caffeine. I do enjoy some decaf and half caff in my life.
Just need to do it to his own washing up. He has used a bunch of different glasses, yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna wait for it to be a full boil, I don't think, because I don't need it to be. It's 93, that's good enough.
I've just put this in the wrong place.
Sorry. Oh, hey, calm yourself.
Why?
Water.
I don't know why. That should be right. That should be, as we look.
No need to be so angry.
Down, that should be the order in which we're tasting these, from A, B, C, and D on the end there. Good.
Okay, up to 225.
Going off the rails. I know. It's too. It's either too early or too late.
We're good.
I haven't had enough caffeine, or I've had too much. It could go either way. But
I poured in way too much water. I thought there was less water in the kettle. Oh well, I just wasted a bunch of water. I need a spoon.
There's too many things at once for a simple man like me. So just quickly, let's run through the sharing of tasting in terms of how that's going to work if you want to share with other people. There's a few ways you can do it. Obviously, if it's just you and you've got a mug of coffee, you can, if you want to, drink from the mug of coffee. Let it cool down a little bit more first. If not that, then the spoon. We will be
I'm just going to drink straight from the mugs.
Wherein you'll take a small amount of spoon on the coffee, very gently aerate it as you begin to taste.
Oh wait, I might try and slurp.
So don't start tasting just yet. I'm just going to walk through the kind of process a little bit.
Because you're supposed
That's
to
the
the
gentle
slurp
slurp for
when you
today.
taste,
We're not going to
apparently.
get the big slurps. The audio is stressing me out too much. Well, maybe towards the end we can have some slurps when it's all kind of coming good.
I'm going to try to slurp. I'm not nearly as good
If
at
you
it.
are sharing with other people, there's the 2-spoon method, which I find to be
No, that was
insanely
bad.
stressful. But it's for people who really,
That coffee's
really,
way too
really
hot to
want
taste
to
anyway.
slurp from a spoon. So you can decant spoon to spoon.
ASMR.
This way, your tasting spoon never
Put the
touches
scale
the
away.
liquid that you share with anyone else.
Put the spoon in the sink.
You can slurp and you can have fun and do all of those things. What I think is kind of easier most of the time.
And try to stop
just
running around like a
tasting cup,
headless
and that's kind of become
chicken
more
if I can
normal
help
for me
it.
in my day-to-day life, where you can just have a little sample in the cup.
I drink my coffee black.
Have a nice time.
99% of the time.
Now,
If I'm at a
these are still a little bit
I
hot,
might try a latte or something, but
I think
there's so many things I have to do
we could
today.
gently
I have to do
start
this. I have to
kind of
do
work our way
this any
through
stream
this.
time. I have to do math. I got
When you're
a lot of
scoring,
things.
your opinion during this tasting is going to change, right? And so what's going to happen is, I would say, think about your initial marks that you put on here as pencil marks. But as you get right towards the end, you
Did I say
really
hi?
lock in.
Sorry,
how
I'm
you
stressed right
feel.
now, but hi,
Treat those
Swirskin.
more as
I'm
penny
doing good.
marks.
I hope
It's
you
going
are
to be
too.
interesting to see how your scores change, whether you think things kind of go up or down in intensity on the different categories. But that's going to be really important. And in fact, I would say you want to have a kind of taste of each of these before you even think about making a note, right? Just to kind of get the lay of the land.
For anyone who wasn't included with the kit, was this like scoring sheet
Here, we just want to see
where you rate
what's going on.
the bitterness,
What's
acidity,
happening? What are the different flavors?
and
Don't
whatever the bottom
think
one
too
is
much
that I can't
about
read
them.
right now.
Just experience that there are some differences here.
Preference.
It's going to be some fun.
Whatever that is.
And then,
I guess overall.
you've had a little taste of everything, which I'll do now, just to see where we are.
Oh, okay, let's have a taste. Actually, these are way too hot. I can already tell I'm going to burn myself. The slurps.
Then I think we can start to work
chatting, eating,
category
drinking.
by category. And this is really the sort of secret to tasting and tasting effectively.
But just chatting like
is that you're not trying
category
to assess everything.
picture
You're gonna
has
break
like a
it
girl
down
with a cup
to
of coffee,
one
right?
simple component.
This is perfect.
And I would say the first one is probably the first one on your card. It's kind of
Using
the
the
easiest
spoon.
one.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
should
going
get
to
a
be
spoon.
bitterness. Bitterness is, I think, a sensation a lot of us are
So I
familiar
don't
with
deal
in
with it
coffee.
being, or I can like cool it down
I used
a
to
bit.
hear people talk about specialties having no bitterness, which I think was probably a terrible lie. But you know, bitterness is present in all things coffee. You experience it, you detect it all over your mouth actually, but you tend to experience it more towards the back of the tongue in a weird sort of way, that sort of bite and bitter pain. Though it's not always an unpleasant sensation. We have lots of bitter things that we really, really enjoy. Bitterness can be extremely
I'm gonna get a spoon. Let's do it
complementary
right.
to other flavors and very enjoyable, or it can be very unpleasant to a lot of people. It's a very divisive kind of taste sensation. What I want you to do as you start is move from A to B and think, is this more
Also a
or
little
less bitter?
rinsing bowl.
B to C, is this more or less bitter? C to D, is this more or less bitter? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? Start with that kind of an exercise. And then once you've understood that, then you can start to feel like, okay, well, then I think then one of these might be a lower bitterness. One of these might be quite high in bitterness for me, but don't ink it in yet. Just leave a little mark, because as you taste, as we go back, your opinions may well change.
All right, so this first one is
Have a little taste thinking about that.
Flatch coffee.
At this point, you're not trying to get flavors, you're not trying to get notes, nothing.
So I
like
did
that.
cheat and try
Just
this one
focus on this one
last week.
characteristic. Then the next one I
don't
want you
taste
to
any.
think about
It's
is
hardly
acidity.
any
And
bitterness
in the world
that.
of tasting,
It almost tastes like it has
there's a
milk in it.
phenomenon known as
even though
bitter
it doesn't
sour
actually.
confusion, where a lot of people experience sourness in products they don't expect it to, to find it, or acidity, and they describe
This one's
it
much
as
more
bitter. That kind
bitter.
of
It tastes like
very
darker
unpleasant
roasted.
sourness to some people. That like, oh, it's bitter.
It's not
it
like
must be bitter.
very
Or in
bitter,
fact, it's a
but
different
compared to that one,
sensation.
it felt
Again, you
very
detect
bitter.
sourness all over the tongue and in the mouth, but you'll experience it sort of along the sides of the tongue a little bit more.
That one's
So it's that
maybe,
kind of
I
sharp,
can't tell if it's about the same as
pleasing,
this one, or maybe it's
think
between
crisp
the other
apple,
two.
think
Sorry, the second one is
citrus
George
fruits.
Howell.
Acidity kind of lights
Forgot
up
to
the
say
tongue
that.
along the side. That's
Third
what
one
you're
is
looking for. And
Equator.
again, as you move from one to the other, to the other, to the other,
The
just
fourth
start to think,
one is
how is
black
that
and white.
characteristic changing? Is it better?
Or
Is
the
it worse?
roaster? I should use a shorter mug.
Now here on the score sheet,
Ooh.
we're asking you to gauge the presence of acidity, not necessarily how much you like it. That will factor into preference down below, but we do want to sort of see how much you can, how much.
This one is the least bit bitter. That one's very like
Is it
fruity
high in
and
acidity,
sweet.
whether you like it or not? Is it low in acidity,
I think
whether you like it
it's
or not? Or is it
this
sitting
is the
somewhere
least bitter.
in
That's
the middle?
slightly more bitter in the finish, and then these two are about the same. But none of them are very bitter at all. Let's see, Clatch, I said, I have a scale of 1 to 5 here. None of them are high. Like, I almost don't want to give any of them a 3. Because I don't have enough things below 3. I'm going to say Clatch is a 2, because it did have that bitterness in the finish. George Howell is a 3.
I've seen a few
Equators,
people ask, yes, this is going to be available
3.
afterwards
In black
to
and white, it's a
restream. If
1.
you're not tasting live and you want to taste later, you'll
And
still be able
then
to taste along with us as we go.
water and coffee or milk and coffee?
To really
Like an Americano versus a
forcibly rein
latte?
in my slurps at this point.
I've never had an Americano.
Okay.
Probably, if I'm
Now,
going to
what I
drink
want you
one
to
of them
do,
daily, I probably prefer an Americano.
these are already starting to cool for me here. Maybe it's not the warmest here in the UK. If you're in a very hot place,
Acidity. That's pretty acidic.
But if you go back to your initial assessments,
Yeah, Drew.
take bitterness again. Go back to what you thought you tasted and taste it again, because the coffees will change. And it's in part, I think,
That's
there
not
is some chemical
nearly as
shift
acidic.
happening in the coffees, but primarily the shift is in you, the taster. You're better at tasting things the cooler they are or the closer they are to body temperature. And so when things are very hot, you're not as good at tasting them, and as they get cooler,
This one's
and cooler,
a bit more acidic. It has a bit more.
kind of easier.
The
to
Equator one
taste.
has a bit more
And
going
things
on than
like
George
describing
Howell.
flavors within them do get easier and easier again. So
Hi, Drew.
again,
You want to drink
it's
homemade
not
coffee?
just
That's what I
go
mainly
through
drink.
bitterness once, make a judgment. Now that they've cooled down a little bit, go back and revisit your scores. We'll do this one more time before we wrap at the end. But I think it's really
Either black and white or Clatch have the most acidity.
Look
I'm
at
not
what
sure
you
between
decided
those two
it
which
tasted
one.
like, and then now does that match up? And it's okay and very normal if that's shifted a little bit during the tasting. Now, this is a relatively simple score sheet. There are other attributes that I think it's extremely interesting.
Me do it in a different order.
Think about.
Let me start from Equator and go to the right.
Is mouthfeel, texture. It's a difficult word. It's one of the more pretentious sounding words in tasting. I remember going to a tasting where they would talk about, is it
this one also tastes a lot better when I don't taste it right after George Howell's.
Does it have a different kind of mouthfeel? Is one richer? Is one lighter? Again, you're trying to almost divorce the presence of mouthfeel.
I'll say this one also tastes better, the George Howell one.
From preference, you might like lighter, delicate things, and this has a lot of texture, and that's okay how you feel about it. It's just how do you feel these textures are different between the coffees? And I would say there's a good textural variation between them.
You could say for health, just avoid the milk, but I don't know. Other than that, it's just like a preference.
And then we're going to talk about tasting notes, which is always the bit that I get the most stressed by in any tasting, because a lot of people get stressed by the idea of tasting notes. And I should explain most of the time what tasting notes really mean. They're kind of missing a really important phrase that should go right in front of them. So when someone tastes this or tastes a coffee, and take an imaginary coffee, and they say, oh, it tastes like blackberries.
Someone's really changing it as it cools down.
The bit before that's missing.
I wasn't too high on it before, but I'm liking it more as it cools.
Within coffee, it kind of reminds me of
go to this one now.
The taste of
switch up the order.
It's not an explicit flavor that you're going to find there as if it's an added flavor. You're kind of looking to contextualize the flavor. It might remind you of something fruity. You can start there and be like, okay, it's something fruity. Is it something berry-like? Is it something red-berry-like?
This one must be darker roasted, because like
exactly
this black and white one tastes a lot darker roasted after I tasted that.
But it will remind you of that thing, and that's what you're kind of chasing. And you can start at a very high level and be totally accurate and be like, it's kind of fruity, or it's kind of sweet and chocolatey, or it's a kind of very
So,
broad
I don't know,
umbrella flavor.
I made up my
But
mind
you
on the
can then
acidity.
start to pick into it and be like, well, it kind of reminds me a little bit more of
Hmm.
maybe pear than
Let me
apple.
just go down the line left
You might feel
to right
pretentious in that
and
moment, but it's not.
my
You're
mind on
just
the
trying to
acidity.
sort of feel around flavor to get where you need to go to sort of say what it reminds you of.
There's definitely some acidity
And what it
there.
reminds you of is going to be different to what it reminds me of, because we've lived different lives and we've eaten different things, and there's no singular correct tasting note for any coffee.
There's a little bit of acidity here, but after
really
tasting this one,
important
this tastes
So
very
as you start to
not
taste
acidic.
these, you can just start to think about, oh, this reminds me of what, you know, whatever it is. And that's where notes is really useful. And notes, you can mark down stuff around texture and mouthfeel. How does it
This
leave your
definitely
mouth
has the
feeling
least
after you taste it? That's
acidity.
the finish. You know,
The George
as you
Howell
swallow
one.
and you sit there, what flavors linger? What feelings linger? These, I think, are really enjoyable characteristics. You'll often find coffee people talk about balance, which is a much more complex sort of term.
And this one,
and I think
it has a nice acidity. It's not. I think this is the most acidic to black and white.
It's hard often to sort of do an
And
effective sort of scoring
I
of
feel like I've had
balance
more acidic, so I'll
without
give it a
having tasted a
4.
great deal of coffee with people. What you think is balanced, what I think is
And I
balanced,
guess
may not always marry up, and it's a kind of
if I'm
close to
saying this one is
philosophical
the
thing
second most
as much as
acidic, but
anything
it
else.
is
Like whether you
less, I'll
think
give it a
something that might
3.
have lots of acidity and
And
some
then
sweetness
Equator
and not much body, whether you feel that whole thing is
is
balanced or
less
not,
than that.
may be
It's still a little
different to
acidic, so
whether
I'll
I
give
feel
it a
that's
2. And
balanced
then
or
George
not.
Howell has a 1.
Generally,
For
I would
acidity.
argue balance is sort of a little presence of everything without anything sticking
Oh
out
shoot,
too
is the
much.
YouTube stream too
So
loud
listening
now?
to music and it's just sounding like music and the guitar isn't too
I mean,
loud. When it
turn it
is,
down
it's a
slightly.
bad mix. That's not balanced. And the
I
same
think they
thing, I think,
adjusted
is
the
true
audio
with
again.
coffee. Just going to keep tasting. And so at this point, one more time from the top, assess your scores
Might still
and
be
see
slightly
again
loud, but
how
I'll
they've changed.
keep it.
And then this is kind of interesting to me too. If you've been tasting in one order, I think that's
Oh, this one goes back to tasting just like rose
now
after I
want
taste
you
that.
to go the other way and then kind of randomize it, because a lot of our sense of smell and taste works through contrast. And so the last thing you tasted will be the benchmark for this. So going from this to this will have a different experience than going from, say, this to this, or this to this.
You want to taste coffee with a spoon? Hey, Pin Center.
So now,
It's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to like slurp it too.
coffees to see a kind of different form of contrast happening.
It's like
It's really interesting.
apparently just like it makes it easier to taste. Sure, I kind of missed the part where I talked about preference. Like, I guess it's just how much I like it.
Let's have a look at what's going on in here.
So far, like, I feel like I've had a better cup of coffee than all of these. Like, my best cup of coffee, you can taste like 3 different distinct things all at once.
All right, got a few questions.
And these, they have like maybe 1 or 2 big flavors.
Does oxidization change the taste?
But
generally, when you're tasting coffee,
I'm not sure.
oxidization
Aeration,
will happen, but incredibly slowly, and you will have a comfortable hour, if not more, with these kind of coffees. If you start to heat them actively during that time and expose them to air, as you might do on a hot plate, then you tend to degrade them pretty quickly. But if you're just letting them cool, then they tend to taste great for a surprisingly long time, especially when you kind of go into kind of
let me
tasting
go, I
mode
guess, in reverse now.
and you're comparing and contrasting.
So I have no idea what I would put for flavor notes for any of these right now. This one,
so one more request
the black and white one, apple, like maybe like a green apple, because it has like sweetness, and I mean green apple's probably too strong.
You tend to experience down the side.
There's definitely a good hit of acidity there.
Makes something feel juicy or crisp. People often
so maybe red apple
to describe coffee.
They still have some acidity too.
But it's a kind of experience down the side. It'll remind you of fruit.
For Equator,
way it could be unripe fruit and sour. It could be nice ripe fruit that still has nice acids. Like again, a great apple has a wonderful acidity and a really nice matching sweetness to it.
No clue. Just
so that's
coffee right now.
Bitterness.
Hey Shep, I'm good. How about you?
It is a harder experience to explain in that way, but you tend to experience it more at the back of the mouth and sometimes in the throat as well, almost like you feel it in your throat a little bit. It'll remind you of things like
George Howell,
chocolate,
a little nutty,
or tonic water. Those have that kind of slight bite to them, almost of bitterness. And experienced in different ways.
My mind is going to almonds, but I'm not sure that's just like by default. I'm going to write almonds though. Like a little
Ooh,
chocolatey.
great question on what do people mean by clarity?
Probably dark
I
chocolate.
love this question. It's a really difficult question to answer, but it's a really good question.
Rough day, it'll be
For
fine.
me,
Okay.
you know how I talked about kind of finding your way from fruit to berries down to whatever sort of particular berry you might find, or whatever kind of citrus
This one's
fruit
just
you
in
might
your
find.
face sweet.
The ease in which you can sort of see to a clear flavor, to me, is kind of clarity. In really great coffee, the flavors are kind of separate and you can kind of pick them out.
Hey, what would that be?
If we went to music, if you chose to, you can hear each
Equator and
instrument playing.
Quatch are really puzzling
In a
me.
bad mix, things get kind of muddy and squashy, and you're like, I can't really clearly taste individual flavors very well here. It's a bit like I'm
Go down
looking
the
at
line
how
this
to
way.
focus picture.
Shit, well, no,
I
let's
know
just do it
it's
in random
kind
order.
of some
Let's
sort of
do
red
George
fruit, but I
Howell,
can't
then
clearly
Quatch.
see what it is. And I think when you get more clarity in coffee, it's almost easier to detect those kind of flavors.
Yeah, feeling better about dark chocolate and almonds there.
Is there a deadline to submit? Yes, I think the survey will close tomorrow evening, so that we can get to work on the data analysis.
I
There's
was
going to be a
say
lot of data
caramely, but
through,
it's
we
much
hope,
sweeter.
and very excited to see what comes of this.
I need to search for something that
in.
kind of reminds me of.
Other questions? Will I use the data to design the perfect blend of coffee? It's a good question. You're in. I don't know if that's possible. I think the thing that we're going to discover is that people have wildly varying preferences.
This one is also pretty caramely, but they're very different types. Like
have
maybe like butterscotch
preconceptions about
that's what I'm thinking.
different groups and their preferences, and I'm not sure those are necessarily accurate. I think we don't really know what people think. We see what they buy, and we might ask them something, but this, I think, is kind of interesting as a totally different way to kind of get a preference test out of people. Okay. Yes, and all the data from the survey
also
will
reminds me
be
a little bit
released.
just like a
Once
little bit of
it's
dried
anonymized and
fruit,
we
like
tidied up
cranberries.
and made available open source, we'll obviously share what we find
More
in
subtly,
it, but I'm
but
sure some very smart people will
I'm saying
also find some
cranberries,
fascinating
black and
trends in
white.
there. Yes,
Quatch,
this is
I
not
mean,
supposed to be
it does taste kind of
data.
milky. I guess I could say creamy.
Us collectively learning together. That's the bit that gets me very excited about this.
I say caramel. That's how everyone I know said it growing up.
What does texture feel like? That's a good question. It can be a bunch of different things,
that one really is waking up as it cools, which is supposed to happen.
If you think about, tea, as you're going to go from weak tea to strong tea, there's a real change in how that feels to drink. And the same thing is true with coffee. Interestingly here, the strength of all of these is pretty much identical, I would say, as in there's the same amount of dissolved soluble material in each of these things, but they don't all feel the same to drink in the mouth. Some of them might feel lighter and a bit more tea-like, and others will feel heavier and kind of rounder and fuller, almost like there's a creaminess to them. That's often a sort of sensation where it's not fatty in that way.
You're gonna go? All right, well, thanks for stopping by, Chef.
Reminds you of something richer and fuller in the mouth.
I clearly understand. You're never obligated to hang out here.
Let me just check.
Thanks for checking in, though.
Okay, how is everyone feeling
in
terms of having had a good chance to assess these and begin to lock in some scores?
You try from Equator.
I will tell you,
like butterscotch is not enough to describe that
during this tasting. Quite surprisingly.
Because this one also has a fruitiness to it.
And again, the fun thing about those changes is that's mostly you.
My mind is on plums, but now I can't figure out which one I would apply it to.
It's good to understand the limitations of us as humans, and also, apply appropriate expectations to professional tasters. They are better at it, but they're still ultimately human and potentially flawed in that way. Now, I don't.
Maybe Quatch. It's kind of plummy. I'm not sure though.
Chat. I'm not against it, but I will reveal in a second.
Plum and creamy for Quatch, because I definitely get like kind of milky, almost like a milk taste, which is really weird to have in coffee without milk. But then for Equator, like I want to figure out what kind of fruit it tastes like.
Now, you've got to promise me that once you've locked this in, you're not going to change it. And then we have the final preference questions on the back.
I'm not even at there yet.
Right? Don't forget these. These are really important. First question, between these three here, A, B, C, which was your favorite?
You know what?
Which do you
I think
prefer? You may choose one.
there's no
And
point in
then
trying to
we wanna
search for
know
descriptions. Let me
between this one and this
between
one,
A, B,
A
and C.
B, which was your preference?
Wait.
So two separate questions. Really, really
Yeah.
very excited.
A,
to
B,
know
and
your
C, which
thoughts
is my
about
favorite.
this.
I think I gotta say
And if
Clatch.
you're curious, I could tell you what the
'Cause-
coffees were, but you have to lock in your answers at
Like
this
very
point.
fruity
You'll
and
be tempted
acidic.
to change them. Everyone always is.
Kind of fruity and
I don't know
acidic.
why, but
Not fruity and
it's just human
acidic
nature.
at all.
There's no
Those are the things
correct
that I like
answers
in
here,
coffee.
but
And then they asked between
still,
A and D, which is my favorite. And that's a hard one because
you all
they're
locked
both
in.
very
So I'll
good.
get the results out for you in a second if you are. Let's check the chat.
It has much more of a punch of acidity.
I'm seeing lots of locked in. Great. I guess
It's
time to
black and white's tasting a little
talk
weird
about
as
the
I
coffees then. Should we talk about the coffees?
taste it more. So I'm
Should
gonna
we
go
start
A
here
for
at
my.
A?
I guess A is my
for the
overall
reveal?
favorite.
So this is
Clatch.
roasted by Clatch.
And he's about to describe
lovely
it now.
people at Clatch, the Perrys. Got to know Heather through barista competition. This coffee. Do you want a second to throw in your?
But overall, I think my
suggested
separating is
origin,
A, D,
folks? Do you want to
C,
have a little guess at this
B.
point? I always enjoy when people have a guess.
So Clatch, black and white, Equator, George Howell.
Come on, guess. Or country of origin for
Or
A.
what I like. Country of origin for A? I have no clue. I'm not good at that.
Oh, some people are right. It's a really,
A lot of Colombia's in chat.
I love seeing this. I love seeing the chat explode with answers and ideas. This is the greatest.
Which, I mean, Colombia's a good guess that you can get almost
Okay,
any
some
type
good
of coffee in
guesses. Lots of
Colombia.
you are
You make a lot of
correct.
coffee.
But this is a coffee from Kenya.
Kenya?
It's a washed
Really?
coffee.
That's what I expect out of a Kenyan coffee.
For me,
yeah, just a safe guess. Hey, Anders.
it's a kind of clean, sweet fruit. It's quite high in acidity.
Busting out the emote, I appreciate it.
It's not super blackcurranty, or that's always a tricky descriptor. In the UK, blackcurrants are really common, and how we experience a lot of black
for
fruit
Clatch.
As a child.
Rather than blackcurrant, but I feel like maybe not too far off.
Common in the US, so I have to not use that descriptor.
Yeah, Kenya makes probably the best.
I think the descriptor they used,
like
which
the
is
single
red apple
best
for this, actually
country for
is a
coffee.
good description of the kind of acidity here. Different fruits have different kinds of acid. Obviously, fruits like citrus have citric acid. Things like apples have malic acid. And that has a nice kind of appley, sharp crispness to it.
It said apples for Clatch, but I said apples for black and white.
Caramel in there is nice. It's a kind of balanced acidity sweetness combo.
Did I say caramel for that one? Oh yeah, I was debating with like caramel. Like I said, both these had the caramel, like one and three, Clatch and Equator.
My acidity score would be pretty high.
And if it's Kenya, it's probably a wash process.
It's a pretty coffee, quite light in terms of texture. I wouldn't go to tea-like, but I would go to almost, there's something fruit juice about it to me. I think that's the sort of bit that's pinging in my brain. It reminds me of kind of fruit juice more than tea, but it is, I think, an elegant, complex, very enjoyable washed coffee there.
He said it's washed, okay.
Now, I can really trip you up in a second and say, do you want to guess the origin for B? Someone said A tasted better as it
I don't think
cooled
it's
down.
even possible, man. It's really roasty.
As it cools down, it gets easier to pick apart the flavors in it.
Let me try it again and see if I think of anything. Like you could say maybe
lots of good guesses in here.
Brazil or El Salvador or something.
Now I've been a bit mean here. You get to be very right, a lot of you, because in fact,
but like if you roasted a Kenyan that dark, I feel
so. George Howell, pioneering roaster, amazing coffee professional, hugely influential, just one of the most knowledgeable, fascinating people with an incredible company. Huge fan of George Howell.
It's supposed to make it taste better, Anders. Oh, did he say Mexico? I missed
Alchemy,
it.
Which is a blend of his. So it's a kind of
it's a blend.
Interesting combo of washed and natural processed coffees.
Really? I didn't taste that.
And for me, this was in the kind of browner flavor section.
You didn't? Okay.
So kind of more of the chocolate, nuts. It's got some nice texture to it. This one was interesting to me as it cooled down.
Yeah, you're supposed to aerate it to make it
For
taste.
me, the sort of shift in
or easier to
bitterness
taste,
on
I
this
guess.
one was kind of notable, where quite hot, it had quite a strong bitterness for me, or I noticed the bitterness more. And as it cooled, that kind of faded away into a kind of very balanced cup, sweet, very enjoyable. Just it's one of those kind of Moorish coffees now. Just like
Moorish. That's a really nice British word.
chocolatey. To me, it's kind of the kind of Maillard section of browning reactions that turn
Maillard?
things, make things very enjoyable to us.
We were talking about that yesterday,
that
Central.
for me,
Or
hits those
Maillard?
kind of notes.
Maillard?
Mm.
Oh shoot, is there a queue for Senny's server? I said
So
I would
I didn't tell you
check
the
it
blend.
during the stream.
Oh, dear me.
So
So
you put a
there's 4
blend in
coffees
that
in
weren't
there.
all single origin.
Brazil, Costa Rica, El Salvador, and Ethiopia in there. So quite a complex blend.
Oh hey, I called Brazil and El Salvador.
But I think
there's no queue. Oh, there's
a kind of classic kind of
80
medium
player
roast
cap
level,
on Senny's server, and there's only
but just,
37 people in it. Okay, I'm fine.
developed kind of sugars.
I'm not joining yet.
Nice mouthfeel. All right. Now C is interesting.
Yeah, C, I really don't know about.
Have a little guess.
Later.
C again, I will tell you now, is a blend.
Okay, it's a blend. That makes sense. For my hunting team, I'm not linked up with anyone.
Any guesses for C? Oh, I see some good answers here. So yeah, the Equator Coffee C. Any guesses as to what this was? Have another taste.
What's one guessing the origin for a blend? I feel like that's really just not possible. It's you're only blending 2 countries or something.
Real. So C
Yeah,
is a kind of classic blend executed really well. It's a Mocha Java blend. So it is Ethiopia and Sumatra. The Ethiopian coffee is a natural process coffee, and the Sumatran coffee is wet hulled, which is a really interesting process that has quite a distinct flavor to it. That is, I think, a kind of divisive flavor for some people. Do I need to explain wet hulling? Maybe I should. Usually what happens is that you would pick a coffee fruit, squeeze the seeds out, and they'd be covered in a layer called parchment. And there might be something sticky on there that you might want to get rid of.
It's Senny's has occurred. It's so much better.
Flesh, for want of a better term, often called mucilage. None of the words are good. The wash process breaks that down through some fermentation and then washes it away. In, say, a honey process, you might dry it down and then break the parchment away later. Wet hulling almost immediately takes away the parchment layer around the coffee, exposing the green bean. And it starts to sort of age and change its flavor quite distinctly. It's a really traditional practice in that part of the world, and it has quite a distinct flavor that I think is
really
quite
curious what black and white is going to be. I'm surprised there's 2 blends on the table.
This is, I think, the highest in bitterness on the table, and a kind of classic dark roast. I didn't get
potentially here. I guess we don't know
acidity here. This, for me, is a very low acidity coffee. You know what I mean? The sides of my tongue don't really light up that way. It makes it feel very heavy and very full and very rich, which I think a lot of people like. Too? And that's 2 things. That's one, the roast level. So by roasting it dark, you do
I don't like just butt into someone else's thing.
And they become other.
If I run into someone on a server, I'll team up.
And 2, both of those coffees themselves, wet held coffees tend to be quite low in acidity. Natural coffees from Ethiopia can be, up and down in acidity, but natural processes often do have a little less acidity compared to, say, certainly a washed coffee. So here,
no, that's fine. I'm sure that I'm gonna
those kind
run
of
people there.
tones to this, that kind of heaviness to it. Mostly for me coming from.
I'm just gonna drink
the wet
straight out of the mug now.
From Sumatra that's in there. Cool. Interesting. Now, D is from one single origin again. I look forward to your guesses in the chat.
Single origin. I don't know. For acidity like that, it could be another Kenyan, but I don't think they'll put 2 Kenyans in, right? So I might say Colombian.
Oh, I love it. There are less correct guesses in this one, and I think we can talk about why. I think a lot of people have
might
guessed
be an unusual place.
Ethiopia for this one. It's not a coffee from Ethiopia. So Black and White Roasters, again, superb roasting company. I need to drink more of their coffees. Actually, it's been hard to get their stuff in the UK, and I should fix that soon. Or should I go and visit? Probably it'd be nice. This coffee is an unusual coffee. So it's from Colombia.
Colombia.
Perhaps surprising because
dude, the tasting
it
god.
has a lot of the kind of flavors you might associate with sort of natural process Ethiopians, because it is a natural process coffee.
It's a natural.
It's
okay, interesting.
Processed as a natural, which means that the whole cherries were dried, but they were also deprived of oxygen, which changes the way that they would ferment as they dry. This to me is an interesting variety that I'm still trying to get my head around.
If this wasn't a live stream, I'll rewind that back. So I want to hear how it's processed again.
Whether it is an Ethiopian landrace or not, I'm not sure, but it's an interesting and unusual variety.
Is university
found mostly in Antioquia. Is that my pronunciation correct there? Antioquia, thank you. In Colombia, where this farm is. This has a lot of those kind of.
I know. I just I don't want to get
flavors
behind.
Like a little bit tropical.
I want to wait for like a break point where he's not talking.
Lots of dried fruits as well as ripe fruits. Really complex.
Oh, that's what I even said.
Now this one,
apple fresh, and then a dried fruit like cranberry.
People really like the kind of fermented flavors these carry.
He doesn't shut up.
They're kind of complex, juicy. I will say for people who like a little splash of milk or cream in their coffee, these can be much more controversial or divisive.
Yeah, this one is so acidic that drink. Milk would be
but I think so
weird
interesting
in it.
and so distinct and so unusual. What throws people here is like, well, okay, where's my acidity here? I get lots and lots of fruit, but does that mean there's lots and lots of acidity in the cup? And when you break it down, it's kind of interesting to kind of step back a little bit, but like, forget all the flavors, forget everything else, just focus on the acidity, balance between the two. That's when I think breaking these apart gets really interesting. Yeah, like lots of. I mean, it's a quite difficult coffee to describe, but also super easy to describe because I feel like there's so much fruit quality to it that you could pick almost any.
I just noticed that there's the volume
right.
text.
You know what I mean? Like it's
from when I adjusted the volume last. It's gone now.
And then a really nice sort of matching, balancing sweetness to the whole thing. Now,
someday I'll probably get wireless headphones just for like.
Yeah, there's people noting that this one really, again, this one changed a lot for me. Like the acidity changed a lot, the flavors changed a lot. It really kind of opened up.
Tasted about the same as it cooled to me.
And it became kind of easier to taste and kind of pick apart. And there was sort of more and more going on as it cooled down. Again, don't be afraid to bounce back and forwards between them now.
It's a bit different.
And focus on things like acidity again.
The blends, I think, changed the most as they cooled.
Just between these two, backwards and forwards on that front, very enjoyable. All right. Right, I'm going to answer a few questions because we're getting on in terms of time. Where does the time go? This is amazing. I'm so glad we've had so much fun. I'm loving seeing your opinions here in the chat, even if I can't.
I don't know. I'm just not feeling the dark roast.
I will say,
as far as the dark roast is good.
We're tasting and enjoying this thing. There's a link
in the description. These are like really fruity and sweet, and this one to a certain extent too.
Thank you to Cometeer. This has been a really fun experience for me. I'll try and catch a few questions just quickly before we wrap up and make sure that I've sort of caught everything in this tasting.
Oh, that's been about an hour.
A lot of fun. I haven't disclosed my favorite, and I'm torn. I have a preference for kind of fruit, and I'm sort of torn between A and D. I would find that question of which is my favorite a little bit harder.
Yeah, A and D are definitely my favorites.
Give you my answer.
There's no way I can drink all four of these like cups of coffee. I think I'm gonna my heart's gonna explode.
That's a good question. Like, these feel like close to filtered coffee, like paper filtered coffee to me in terms of clarity, texture.
Yeah.
I would say that's about.
I'm gonna have to dump. I mean, I could like sip out of all of them, I guess.
Is it okay if none of the coffees feel like a 5? Absolutely fine. You know what I mean? You probably will have experienced more bitterness and more acidity, and it's okay for this to be your scale of things. If
I didn't give anything a 5. I gave some things a 1.
Interesting that someone noted that they usually go for lighter roast, but C was their favorite.
I guess I should
this
show
is where
my
you're kind of breaking
scorecard here.
apart flavor. You know, you can discover some interesting things, and it might be the texture of this that kind of spoke to you, or it might be
So
the
overall, my
flavors,
favorite
or it might
was
be something else. It's
a
very interesting.
Clatch. How do I hold this one up blocking?
Ooh, should you pick the, you know, if you were to go buy a coffee, should you buy one that you prefer warm or when cool?
There we go.
I mean, to some extent, this is a good question.
That's how I like rated things and put notes. I didn't do the preference part because
I would say pick the one you prefer cool.
I mean, I guess I should actually do that.
Because I feel like as you get into enjoying what coffee can really offer.
It's like Clatch, I'd say it's a 4. It's not my absolute favorite, but it is really good.
Spending a little bit of time
Black and white.
It's very rewarding. It doesn't have to be that. You can just.
It's about the same. It's slightly less, but not so much less that I would give it a 3. So let's also say a 4.
Coffees that are
Equator.
Pay you back for the little bit of attention you invest in.
Not bad.
Always going to be my preference because I think it just makes coffee.
I should have done this before if anyone with coffee star, but
super chats coming in.
I'll say 3, and then for George Powell,
any super chat donations
it's not really into my
will be donated to World Coffee Research, who we've traditionally supported through these things. I'll match any donations
Zach, hey,
as well. Just
how are you?
Had that pot up. Thank you to everyone who is super chatting. I just want to make
Luigi,
sure that's where
hey,
that money's going to go.
Thanks for lurking. George Powell, I'm going to say a 2. I feel bad giving it a 1.
For preference.
Okay, so with preferences filled in, that's my score sheet for these copies.
I think it would be the easiest way I would summarize preference score is if I just asked you how much do you like it on a scale of 1 to 5,
and
not necessarily
the final
is this the most interesting.
Part,
it's preference.
A all the
Which
way.
one do you want to drink? Which one do you prefer? It may not be the most interesting and complex thing. I want to know what you would want to drink if you had the choice to do so. Thank you for lovely people donating. That will go to sort of the research into the future of coffee.
Okay, there we go.
In terms of from a producer's point of view, making sure coffee is a viable crop into the future. At some point, we'll do a video on the stuff that World Coffee Research is doing, because I think it's really important. They're a great organization, and we have supported them in the past, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay, so I get into the point where I'm going to switch over to Daisy, and then I'm going to try to get Matt in at my normal time.
I feel like there's
in 2 hours.
Some accurate descriptions there. 1 is you hate it, 5 is you love it, 3
you want to drink daily. That's very true, Central.
Like
this one, especially the black and white one, is interesting.
It's kept as a simple scale.
Yeah, we're really like it's like a one-off cup every now and again, but not every day.
Which one you liked, as long as the one that you enjoyed the most has the highest preference score, I think we're solid.
Zach, this is it's a coffee tasting. Basically, the YouTuber up there, I really like, and he did a thing where
is there a specific
you can buy a
reason
kit and he'll ship it out to you.
Yes, there is.
A
I
kit
don't know
filled
if
with
I
like
want to tell you.
Frozen,
I know you've all
like nice instant coffee.
Change them in the follow-up.
They come in frozen little pods that you add boiling water to.
Why we chose these ones and what questions we're ultimately asking or trying.
And so we use those to do like a coffee like tasting.
The data. So it's a good question. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you a fuller answer, but yes, this was quite intentional, and we thought about it for quite a long time and argued about what it should be and tasted a bunch of stuff. And so this was this. All of you people saying thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who took time out of their day.
Okay, I'm going to start getting things
tasted with us.
I got to move this table away so I can sit back at my desk.
Terrifying, but they are really fun.
I got to start switching over to Daisy now.
Doing them, I can. If you've got extra capsules, go and give this experience to someone else. Like, go and share this. Comparative tastings can be so easy, and they're so much fun, and you can't get it wrong. Just tasting and comparing is just the easiest, most fun thing to do. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks everyone's been hanging out with me for this coffee tasting. I know it's unusual, but I really like.
We'll still do it.
Coffee, and this has been fun.
Yeah, bitch! Magnets!
Okay.
Oh!
Let me get my spoon in the sink.
If you think about mixing the leftovers, don't do it. Yeah, blending is a complex thing, and yeah, I would say enjoy them individually rather than but we're going to get some really interesting results out of this. I'm so excited to share.
So I'm going to keep this mug. Oh, Pen Center.
Some of you asked why Square.
Thank you so much for the sub. I'm sorry I missed it.
And I think these coffees were perfect for what we were trying to do, and that was the right.
I really appreciate that, man. I feel bad, but like I just gotta.
I think we're
okay. I'm gonna also keep the black and white copies in South.
I think we've
caught every question that I need. These two, I feel bad, but I guess I'm just gonna dump it because it's way too much caffeine.
Ooh. Thank you, everyone who's donating madly.
Yes, thank you so much, Pen Center.
Also say how much we raised in the next video, so you know where your money's going. Appreciated very much. Good question. Roast level on D. I would say roast level on D is a similar roast level to the roast level on A. So it's on the lighter end of things. I wouldn't say it's an identical roast level, but I would say these are in a similar roast level.
So I'm beheaded to shame.
Okay, I've had too much caffeine too.
These pods are
It's 7
apparently
o'clock in the evening
recyclable,
for
so I'm
me
going to
now,
toss them
so,
in the recycling.
That's going to be more of an intense experience for me going to
I'm
sleep
sure you're
tonight,
really
but,
broken up
really
about
why
me
I do these
being
things too. Anyway,
beheaded.
caffeine aside. Okay. There's questions about Europe. I will say this now.
Okay,
I'd love
get
to
that
do
back
this
in
kind
the
of
freezer
preference
because that
testing in
was
other
part of the
geographies too in
case
the future.
for how the coffees
This was a
came.
great opportunity to do it with the US, and I think what we get out of it's going to be super interesting. But yes, obviously, I'd love to do more of this kind of stuff. It's so much fun. It's so interesting. Okay.
All right. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with this table. It's supposed to go in my kitchen.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
not getting
Thank you,
it all the
everyone
way.
who took part. You have been
Better watch out
amazing.
for recycling.
I hope you had a
Too
lot
late.
of fun. Please.
Actually, it's really
submit your
not
data.
too late, but
we'd really love to know a little bit more about you and what you
I'm
thought
saying
of
it's
these
too
coffees
late.
and your preferences therein.
Okay,
And
I'll
then
need
we'll
this
be sharing
whiteboard back in place for when I
all
do
of the
math.
information that we get with this with all of you, so you can learn more about the American
Nice, mostly in
preference
place.
for coffee. Okay, that's
Okay.
enough. I think I'm done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.
Sorry for the crotch cam. Oh, wow, live stream shit just ended. Okay.
Oh my.
Oh my, indeed.